term?
Well, it's driving, sometimes it's piloting, but yeah,
Piloting,
for
right.
somebody that doesn't know, a Top Fuel dragster, in my opinion, slightly biased, they are the most exciting. They're the fastest form of motorsports that there is. These cars make 9,000 horsepower. They go 0 to 330 miles an hour in 4 seconds. There's really nothing like it. You know, NASCAR guy, they wish they could drive a Top Fuel car. It's pretty much what it comes down to, you know.
Have you ever had like a Tony Stewart or somebody go, hey man, I really like to get behind the wheel?
I was talking with Michael Waltrip the other week, as our kids go to school together and stuff, and I was talking to him, and I said, you know, he was talking about testing and stuff. I said, oh, you know, he said, well, you come maybe drive my car one day. Yeah, okay, we'll do that, and you can come drive my car. And he's like, no way, man, I don't want to get in that thing. But it is fun. John Andretti drove a Top Fuel dragster for back in mid-90s. He drove a Top Fuel dragster.
All right, let's talk about it. I know you got into this because your dad was one of the pioneers in this sport. So talk about that. What's your first memory of seeing your dad in a dragster?
Well, my dad owned the dragsters. He didn't really do a lot of racing. Okay. Yeah, my Aunt Doris, she owned a company or a publication called Drag News, and they covered all the drag racing and stuff like that. So she would take us to the drag races, probably more than my dad even. My dad was in it heavy in the 50s and the 60s. My aunt took us to go see the drag races, and my dad took me a few times. We went to the drags, and he knew Don Garlitz and Don Perdome and these guys. So you go there, and I remember sitting in Garlitz's dragster. I'm a little kid, and I'm thinking, wow, I really like this. This is good stuff, you know. There's just, I guess the problem with drag racing is that 9,000 horsepower and the speed on television is just really hard to get that to come across. But when you sit there and you watch it in real life, and it's shaking the ground, and it's shaking the inside of your body, you go, wow, this is 9,000 horsepower. Oh my God! More horsepower than 10 NASCAR Cup cars. Man, it's hard to translate on the television. It's something you almost really have to see in real life. Once you see it in real life, watching it on TV makes a lot more sense.
And both, I guess your dad and your aunt are in the Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
They are, yeah. They're in the Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and they've been in there for a while, since 1993. So that was real neat to see them get in there.
Do you remember the first time behind a wheel? How fast did you go?
Well, I drag raced my car. That's the good thing about drag racing. You can take your car that you drive out to the drag strip and go drag race it. So first time I went to the drag strip and raced was I had a 77 Pontiac Trans Am that I took to the drag race and drag race. The first time I remember that I raced a dragster was in 1986, and I had just a gas dragster. I went out to the race and ran it probably about 160 miles an hour or something like that. So from there, I wanted to go a little bit faster. It's like the quest for speed. You know, you put a supercharger on it, you run on alcohol instead of on gasoline, and then next thing you got left is, okay, we got to go Top Fuel racing because we want to run nitro. You know. Snap-on
Tools is your sponsor, and you've had a long relationship with them, haven't you?
I have. Snap-on came on board as a product sponsor for my team back in 1992. We actually won a race that Snap-on was sponsoring down in Darlington, South Carolina in 1992. And so they gave me like a screwdriver or something for winning the race. And then after that, we just developed, here and there. And I went and did some displays for them at some of their factories. And my thinking was, I'm going to try and do twice as much as what they expect, and that way they're never going to be disappointed. And it's worked out good since '92.
Now, when I was looking up you and your history to do this interview, I kept coming up on Doug Herbert Performance on the web, which is, tell me about, that's your business?
That's my real business. When I first got involved in racing, I didn't know how to get a sponsor, so I figured, well, I got to figure out how to make enough money to be able to go afford to do this sponsorship. So DougHerbert.com is a website page, and Herbert Performance is the name of my company. We sell high-performance parts and racing equipment and any number of things for street rods and trucks, and we sell stuff to a lot of the cup teams and pretty much anything that'll make your car or truck perform better, or boat for that matter. We have that.
All right, so we've plugged Snap-on Tools, we've plugged the website, so we're on a roll here.
We're on a roll. Let's go.
As far as your desire to do this, a good friend of mine said, the guy's got all kinds of money. He doesn't have to do this to make a living. He does it because he loves it. Is that true?
I don't know if I got all kinds of money. I don't know about that. I do love it. It's addicting. I mean, it really is addicting. It's, It's just like any sports, you know. You like basketball, you like football, you like baseball. It is something that's addicting, and just the speed and the power of it is addicting. You know, there's things, you know, I like going over here to Lake Norman and going boating or jet skiing and stuff. That's relaxing. The Top Fuel racing is not so much relaxing. It's more of an adrenaline rush, and it's the competition that drives you to want to do it and want to win, basically.
All right. Now this year, I understand you have a new crew chief and a car chief. Is that right? Is that how that?
Yeah, we've kind of switched things around because the crew chief, the job of actually tuning the car has gotten so complicated that the guy that's tuning the car really just needs to concentrate on tuning the car. So Jim B.R.A.K.E.S, which has actually been with me since I started racing Top Fuel cars in '91. He was my crew chief. We were the second car to ever go over 300 miles per hour in 1993, and we've set records and won 4 world championships. And he's been with me for a long time, and he's our crew chief tuning the car, Jim B.R.A.K.E.S. And then I brought Dave Fletcher on board as the car chief, and Dave's had experience working in drag racing for over 20 years, working for John Forrest, working for Kenny Bernstein, and he's been a crew chief. And so he has the knowledge of the whole car and all the systems on the car, and he's the right guy to make sure the car's put together right, make sure all the crew guys are doing their right job on their car, and he can jump in there because he knows how to do anything on the car. And a guy like Dave is a guy that you need to make sure that as the crew chief makes his tuning decisions and tuning adjustments on the car, that it's going to do exactly what he thinks it will, because the car has been prepared right by a guy as good as Dave Fletcher.
Okay, now, for the NASCAR fans, and there's a ton of them out there watching the show, they know what the crew is like. You know, they jump over the wall when the car comes into a pit. Tell us about your crew and what they do when you're going into a race.
That's actually a really good question, because the difference between going to an NHRA race and going to a NASCAR race is you go to an NHRA race, every ticket is a pass to go in the pit area. So all the spectators can come in the pit area and they can watch us work on the race cars. Now, with those engines making 9,000 horsepower, the problem is they don't last very long. So after every run that we run them, the entire engine, the entire car gets rebuilt, and from the ground up every run. So we actually did a deal at the shop today with Snap-on Tools. The president of Snap-on Tools, Al Byland, was over at our shop today, and we're doing some training with some of what they learned in their factories to be more productive and quicker. We actually rebuilt the whole car in 31 minutes today. The entire engine, clutch, everything in 31 minutes. So basically from the time you run, shut the car off, rebuild the whole engine, and start it back up again, 30 minutes.
Tell us about the schedule you would run, for example, this year. How many stops? How long is the season?
Our first race is in Los Angeles, California, and Pomona at the LA County Fairgrounds the first weekend in February, and then we'll race 25 races through the year all over the country: Seattle, Washington, Englishtown, New Jersey, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Richmond, Virginia. Around here we race in Bristol, Tennessee. There's Bristol and Commerce, Georgia are probably our 2 closest races that we'll run at. And Richmond, Virginia, I guess those are our 3 closest that we'll run at. And our last race of the year will be also out in Los Angeles in November, first weekend in November. So we're pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you always hear how expensive it is for a NASCAR Cup team to compete every week. I got to believe this is pretty expensive too.
It's expensive, yeah. It's not as expensive, you know. I go over to Hendricks or Everham or Childress or Earnhardt, and you see, I mean, they've got, you know, hundreds of employees. It's turned into such a huge operation. I think the Top Fuel racing, we've got 15 guys on our crew that are full-time that run the car, but these guys do everything. I mean, they drive the trucks, they set up the awning on the tent, they do it all. So it's more than, you know, being a Top Fuel crew guy or funny car crew guy it's a full-time job. It doesn't usually last very good with people being married or with having girlfriends and families, because it pretty much tears all that apart, because they're married to the race car pretty much. They'll go and they might be gone for a month at a time.
Right, and you're a big guy. Is that a disadvantage when it comes to speed in one of these, or does it make a difference?
it probably does make a little bit of difference. Or they have a minimum weight. The NHRA Top Fuel card needs to weigh 2,200.
Ansel Brown, Charlotte Health and Fitness Magazine.
Extravaganza Events and Props, providing the largest collection of themed props in the Carolinas.
Guests of Sports Night receive Godiva chocolates from Godiva Chocolatiers in South Park Mall in Charlotte.
Relax and let your thoughts drift away in a Stressless, the ultimate recliner. Designed to support you perfectly in any position. Relax your body, free your mind in a Stressless.
Come, experience Stressless at Inbo Furniture in Cornelius.